Welcome to the latest episode of The Independent. We're 1 week out from the national championship game. I'm Pete Sampson, joined as always by my co-host Matt Fortuna. And today, if Notre Dame's playing Ohio State, you know we're bringing in Ari Wasserman. Ari, what's going on? How excited are you to see me in Atlanta on Friday?
I'm like, that's the best part. Honestly, I'm a little bit hurt that you waited this long to bring me on because, like, I've been a friend of the program for a while here.
Yeah, that's true.
We had a conversation about Notre Dame last summer about what they were bringing back in their schedule and all that stuff, and that really hit me, Pete. And I went and did my research and watched some of these guys play, and it's just like, yeah, they're really good. And the thing that I have a hard time with in this business is a lot of times, like, it's like narrative and what has happened will always happen kind of writes or kind of guides the ship. And it like just takes precedent over what is real in the moment. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. It's like, oh, Georgia has one title.
I noticed you saying that, but it's true.
There's no possible way Notre Dame could beat Georgia. And it's like, Georgia stinks right now. Why is everybody saying this? And it's like, I don't know. Like, Notre Dame has gone a long time before this year without winning a big game in the postseason. Like, everyone knows that, but like, it doesn't mean they won't this year. So like, I put out a bracket for On3 at the beginning of the year that projected, or not the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the playoff, that would projected that Notre Dame would go to the final. And people went berserk. They're like, you're an idiot. No. They're not even going to get out of the first round. And it's just like, I think that people just can't like look at what's in front of them. And that's not a way of being like, yeah, I'm super smart. Like, you helped me arrive there. But like, yeah, so they beat teams that they're better than. Notre Dame was better than everybody that they played along the way. Like, sometimes this is really hard to break down and analyze, and sometimes it's not. And I think that Notre Dame, they could have lost to Penn State. That first half looked pretty dicey, but I think they're a better football team than Penn State, and they won. They're better than Georgia. They're better than Indiana. Here we are.
Who'd you? I remember. I think you tweeted Brian Hartline pulled out your bracket, so I'm assuming you didn't have Ohio State in the final. Who'd you have?
I didn't. Well, the bottom half of the bracket, which is Notre Dame's side, I'm 100% on. I got the whole thing right. And then the other part of the bracket, well, I had Ohio State losing to Oregon in the second round before I realized that they knew how to play football again. And then I had Texas beating Oregon because I didn't think Oregon was going to go 15-0. So my bracket was almost pretty close. Had Texas pulled it off, I would have had the final right. But I feel really comfortable with the one that I put together. I think it was pretty good. So we'll see. Like, here's the thing, and we're going to talk a lot about this, but like, the Ohio State that exists right now did not exist when we were making these brackets. And I think we all kind of knew that was in there somewhere. And part of the reason why Ohio State fans want their coach fired or wanted him fired was because everybody knows the sum of its parts and the fact that Ohio State just never was playing what they're made of. And then they play in the playoff and it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's who they are. Like, this is who they were supposed to be all year. And they weren't. So I guess the question really will be, can Notre Dame put them back to a place that was, very visible to everyone in November, or if the train has left the station and it's just a ass kicking mode all the way to the national title? We'll see. Texas did a pretty good job of it. So, I don't know. They've got a lot of really good players, guys. You know that.
Yeah, it's I do wonder if the fact that Notre Dame has sort of seen Ohio State up close the last 2 years matters. Like, I think they've gone. They certainly went toe-to-toe with them last year. 2 years ago, I felt like Notre Dame was hanging out for dear life from the opening kickoff. And did a good job of it. But, it's like if you've seen Marvin Harrison Jr. and held him in check, and you've tried to defend Emeka Egbuka and Travion Henderson, like, I would think that would give Notre Dame at least some kind of like, well, these are football players, like we're football players.
Yeah, like the boogeyman aspect isn't there, right?
No, which is like amazing to me because like Georgia was the boogeyman for Notre Dame. Like that was like, to me that was like the U.S. beating the Russians for Notre Dame. Like that.
Yeah,
that happens and you're like, oh my God, like
except if Russia sucked that year.
Yeah. And then like I guess I don't know if was Penn State
God country. I'm not in Notre Dame.
I don't know much about hockey, but like that Russia team was like awesome, right?
Yeah. It's just like Georgia
the history books tell me.
But like they were like,
I just think like Notre Dame has like they've seen this level of athlete before. They haven't beaten Ohio State, but like having beaten Georgia and Penn State back to back, I think Notre Dame comes into this place in a completely different headspace than they were Alabama 2012, Clemson 18, Ohio State 15, because they have some proof of concept that like, hey, we can go out and beat a good team.
Yeah. So like with me, and you guys have known me for years, you know how I am. Like with me, like I always just when I'm trying to predict a game, and like somewhere along the line, guys, we went from writing about what happened to being the purveyors of what will happen, and I don't know why that happened. But like I just kind of just go like, so who's on both teams, and then just do the math. And the thing that I am very curious, and I'll ask you, and I even asked Andy Staples, who says hi, by the way, this morning on the show. So here's the thing that struck me from the Notre Dame Penn State game, and I'm assuming that you guys talked about this, maybe you didn't. But during the entire game, how many in-game interviews did Marcus Freeman have during that game? You were covering it, Pete, so you probably didn't see it live, but he talked at least 3 times, I think, at least twice during the game in very high leverage moments. And this man exuded so much confidence and so much like we're in control of this situation just in the way that he did the interview that I was just like, this guy feels like he's been here 10 times already. When it was really like if they would have lost to Georgia, think about the narrative that would have continued with this team. And they ended up winning and beating Georgia and then doing it again against Penn State when it seemed like they were about to just get physically manhandled for a half. And like, I think there is something about this Notre Dame team of like, it doesn't matter what happens to us, we're going to figure it out. And our coach is going to remain calm. And it's such a 360 or 180. Sorry, 360 is a whole circle. It's a 180 from when I was in South Bend with you last year, guys. Like when they had 10 men on the field, and it's like, yeah, this is a coach that needs to learn. He figured it out really fast. Like I don't know if it was just like an overnight success story that took 3 upsets to get there, but like, man, I was really impressed by his poise in that Penn State game. So. Like, how much of this breakdown of this game is football? Of just like who is on Ohio State and who's on Notre Dame? And how much of the breakdown of this is like, yeah, maybe Notre Dame is just like 0-2 Ohio State, where it's a team of destiny, and no matter what happens, they're going to figure it out. Like, I don't know how to break down games in the Angels in the outfield way. I only can do it based on who's like good. And like the 0-2 Ohio State thing, I've seen quite a bit with them beating Miami. And it's like, yeah, well, they had like 23 players off that team drafted. Like they were still really good, but Notre Dame is too. So like, I'm sure we'll get to my prediction. You're not going to love it, but like, I also don't know if like, maybe there is something to it, you know, with this Notre Dame. Like, I love them. I think they're awesome. They earned every inch that they got this year. And shit, they've lost so many good players to injury. And have still been very good. Like there's so much to like about this team. And the question I guess I have is, are they good enough athletically across the board to hang for 4 quarters against Ohio State? And maybe the answer to that is yes. I don't know.
It's funny because like that's the narrative around Notre Dame every year, right? Oh, they don't have enough athletes. They can never hang with a team like this. And, you know, they've proven otherwise last few games. I will say in this particular matchup, obviously, Ohio State has more 5 stars. They have more high-end draft picks. I do think Notre Dame's secondary is good enough to not just let Jeremiah Smith and those receivers run all over them and destroy them. I do think that defensive line is good enough to take advantage of some of the holes on Ohio State's offensive line. And I think if you pressure Will Howard, you give yourself a chance. All my questions with Notre Dame right now are on the offensive side of the ball. I have a hard time like scheming up ways in my mind where they can score enough points to keep up with this Ohio State team, which I think they can hold in check if they play their best game, but you're still going to need to score a decent amount of points. And you're not going to have a cornerback slip and fall in the 4th quarter every week in a playoff game.
So like in football, like, I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter, but like during the first half of the Penn State Notre Dame game, everyone's like, oh, this is boring. Or, you know, like there's no offense. It's like, Yeah, like everybody's like Jeremiah Smith. And it's like, yeah, he's like really good. But like Ohio
How'd that
State's
work out Friday?
defense is better than their offense. Like that's like I think everyone's missing that. Like everyone. So Notre Dame's team total for the game is 17, right? So even if they get to 24, which would be a improvement or a out like overproducing what is expected in Vegas, like they have to hold Ohio State to 20 points or something to probably win, right? Like that's what we think.
Yeah.
But it's like my biggest thing is that I think Ohio State will score 3 or 4 touchdowns because they'll score 3 or 4 touchdowns against anybody. And that's a slow day when they're playing peak level. I don't know from what I saw in the playoff if I think that Notre Dame's going to get to 24, which I think is the bigger issue here. So, like, we can get blinded by Will Howard and Judkins and the receivers and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, those guys are really good. But, like, half of Ohio State's defense should already be in the NFL right now. And, like, I know, like, when you said, oh, the narrative is that Notre Dame can't athletically keep up, and that's been the thing for the last 10, 15 years, and it has been. But, like, this Notre Dame team is every bit as talented as everybody else. The thing is that Ohio State is the last of the 2020, 29 Alabama, 2019 LSU in terms of like roster makeup. Like they brought their entire team back from last year and then added 5 luxury pieces in the portal that, you know, that you could make a question like Caleb Downs was even necessary to add, and they went out and bought him anyway. And it's like, I just don't know that this might be the most talented roster on one side or one side of the matchup in this game that we'll ever see again in the sport with the way that it's set up. Like they're like the extinct creature of college football that used to run the sport for the past 20 years. So yeah, Notre Dame is athletically as gifted as everybody else. But I think the question is Ohio State, which we came into the year thinking was the case, just overly like the only team that possesses a wealth of talent the way that they used to. And like, that's the thing for me. So it's not a Notre Dame's in it. I don't think Penn State can athletically match up. Texas, who's routinely signed top 5 classes, wasn't as good as them from a physical standpoint. So it's not a negative on Notre Dame. It's more of what does Ohio State have, and will anybody ever have that much talent ever again?
Yeah, it's. I mean, you look at Ohio State's defense. The people that have coming back, it's similar to Notre Dame, right? They bring back Cross and Mills and Kaiser and Watts. So it's like that's kind of the same thing as bringing back Sawyer and JTT and importing Caleb Downs. It's I mean, it's an incredibly talented defense. It's just like you look at the last 2 games, Ohio State wins 21-10 and 17-14. So like the idea of holding Ohio State to 20 points is like, well, they've done it twice before.
Right.
So, it's like, is this Ohio State offense better than the previous 2? Ari, you could probably answer that better than either of us could.
Better than last year, not as good as 22.
It's like people like roll their eyes at this, and I don't know. I personally believe that Jeremiah Smith would be the number 1 receiver on like half the NFL teams already. So last year they had Marvin Harrison, and like it's like how much better could a human being possibly be at receiver than Marvin Harrison was last year? So it's like I think that Jeremiah Smith and Marvin Harrison probably, just from an analysis standpoint, cancel each other out. But like I think their receivers from top to bottom are probably better. And like you saw on the first drive of the Texas game that they were just all over Jeremiah, and they're hitting Carnell Tate and Emeka Egbuka and G. Scott. Like they have guys that will get open when you're concentrating on Jeremiah. Like I thought it was the most effective 1 reception, 3-yard game in the history of football because like it changed Texas's entire defense. That said, I think that their quarterback is probably better than he was last year. And I know that Kyle McCord had a great year at Syracuse, but I think that the running element helps. I think adding Judkins to the mix makes it better. I don't know statistically. I haven't even looked this up, but like I would think that if this is a new Ohio State, which is what we're all kind of operating under, right? Like they're finally figured out who they were instead of trying to out Michigan and trying to out we laugh. And I'm sorry, I'm talking in tangents, but like, you know how everybody like laughs about like, I want to know where Lou Holtz is right now, right? Like everybody jokes about that because it's so freaking funny. I really truthfully believe with my tinfoil hat that Ryan Day like takes the you are a finesse team seriously, and like it bothers him. And I think it has impacted how he's tried to win games in the past. And I think that's the reason why they lost to Michigan this year. I think it's part of the reason why they were very competitive or in a close game last year against Notre Dame. It's because they try to prove to the world that there's something that they're not, when really the answer was just be who you are. And like, so from that standpoint, it's like if they call the game with who they are instead of trying to like they're not going to just run all over Notre Dame. No one does. And like Notre Dame, if they're anything, right, they're great on the lines and they've got a great defense. So like if you come out playing the Michigan game, then yeah, you'll score 20 points and maybe lose. If they come out and just throw the ball, and I mean like, and it doesn't mean just 50-yard shots downfield. It means like throw the ball on 3rd and short and 1st and 10 and all these like laterally to the sideline, get these guys open. Like it's just hard to cover. So long, and I think it's like as good, if not better than last year. And I think that it's possible that when it's all said and done, Jeremiah Smith is going to be the greatest receiver in college football history. And like, that's just like a lot to say, but like you guys have watched, like, you know what
he's fun to watch.
He's 18 years old and he's like 6'4" and he's an alien. Like I've never seen anything like it before. So, yeah, like if the charge for Notre Dame to win the game is to hold Ohio State to 17, like that's a really hard ask, especially when I feel like they're going to get a lot. Yeah, and I think that like
Texas did to 21 for all intents and purposes,
right? But Ohio State had 8 drives in that game. I think 7 or 8.
Yeah,
where they had penalty. It's just like if they, and that's the other thing too. And I was listening to somebody else talk about this, and it's so true. It's like, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you probably feel more confident about this game because you saw Texas hold them to 21 offensive points, right? They only scored 21, so it can be done. It literally was just done. But at the same time, that's the first time in like 5 years Ohio State got socked on the mouth a few times in the fourth quarter and didn't fold like a cheap tent from REI. Like that's the other thing too. It's like Ohio State has illustrated the ability to win a game where things aren't going well against a really good team in the fourth quarter in a stadium in that team's state. It's like they didn't ever show that. Ohio State hasn't forced Michigan to punt in 4 years in the fourth quarter. Like they're not a team that is like that. Like to me is the path. Like if I were Notre Dame, I'd be like, oh crap, Ohio State beat the crap out of Texas 42-17 and never had to sweat. It's like, it's almost worse for them that Ohio State had 8 drive-killing penalties that stopped their offense from scoring and put them in a position where they had to win a game where they didn't play their best. Because Ohio State's always on autopilot mode. Oh, yeah, they can beat anybody 42-10 when things are going well, but can they beat a really good team when it's not going well? And they just did that for the first time. So, like, I don't know. Like, I just, like, I'm having a hard time seeing the route here. And I'm not trying to be an asshole. Like, I'm really not. Like, I just don't, like, explain the game to me in an Ohio State loss. Like, what does it look like?
I mean, it would have to look like the
Howard
Georgia
meltdown
game where
Will Howard meltdown. But, like, how do you melt down when you can just – how many games would Ohio State have won with you at quarterback this year? 9?
No,
like, it's like, what does a meltdown look like? 4 turnovers?
I would have been mad because I would have thrown interceptions.
I think just 2. Like, the margin for error for Notre Dame, well, not big. I think it's just like they need to win the turnover margin and then get like a 4th down stop at midfield when Ryan Day was like, we're going to be physical on 4th and 2.
Yeah.
We're going to run it up the middle to show Lou Holtz.
But
I got thrown for a 1-yard loss.
The new Ohio State that we're working under the pretenses of is throwing in that position.
Yeah, that's we've all tried to psychoanalyze Ryan Day, but
which is, by the way, a hell of a trip. You try to do that,
industry.
You need to take.
I just wonder if like this is a game where Ryan Day moves towards Michigan Ryan Day because of Lou Holtz and like we're going to be physical and like that's Marcus Freeman and I'm tougher than that guy, even though
he does that and blast him into the sun. Seriously, like if they come out and run the ball on 1st down, 8 out of 10 first downs that they have, like blast him into the sun.
I mean, I could see it. I could see it.
Okay,
if he loses this game, every person in Columbus is going to say, "Why is Marcus Freeman coaching Notre Dame and not us?" And
they were already
I think that plays into it. But if it's at this stage, I just think,
yeah.
And again, we're overanalyzing this, but you're not wrong in anything you say. But like, I think it's the crime of the century or crime of the decade, I should say, that Ohio State hasn't won a national title in 10 years. I wrote this column. I said to you, Urban Meyer underachieved there. He had the best team in college football every single year. He made one championship game.
Ohio State is the most underachieving program in college football when compared to their resources.
I would agree. And their fans know it, and it makes it worse for them because the coaches just, or in this case, like crumble under that pressure.
So if you think that like, here's the thing. It's like we all, and I'm going down the path with you guys. Like we are like 3 games since the Michigan game, and they were all big wins, right? Because their pathway's really difficult. They've done a pretty good job. But like his complete and utter meltdown from a coaching standpoint was literally 5 weeks ago, of like real time. Yeah. Like it's like it feels like forever ago.
Yeah, it's like if Northern Illinois was the last game of the season, we would have a much different opinion about Marcus Freeman, even if the playoff played out the way that it did.
If ESPN does not have Schrodemore and Thomas Hammock on a megacast, altcast, whatever Monday, they're doing it wrong.
So here's the thing, and I think that the reason why I'd probably buy some stock in Sherrone Moore as a coach is because the teams that have beaten Ohio State in the last few years, first of all, the Michigan team that beat them this year was the first time Ryan Day lost to a bad team. Like that was the first time they lost to a bad team. But what Michigan did in that game was forced Ohio State to play the game they wanted to play. If Notre Dame can drag Ohio State into a physical fist fight and turn it into the Penn State game, then game on. Like if that's the case. But if Ohio State is out there moving the ball effectively through the air in this dome, they've, always played better inside because, the speed and the turf and all that. Like if they are throwing it all over the field and chunk plays and stuff, like they're going to get run out of the building.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of whether or not you think that the game is going to look more like the Penn State game.
Well, let me ask you this. Were you at the Rose Bowl?
I was, yeah.
When I filled out my bracket, I picked Oregon to win it all this year because I just thought they're easy. I'm not saying by far, they're easily the best team in the country. How much of that was Oregon just not showing up versus Ohio State playing like the Kansas City Chiefs? Because I just could not believe. I wasn't shocked Ohio State won. I was shocked it was 35-0 in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, it was 34-0 in the second quarter, and I was stunned by that. Yeah. Because we already saw the game once this year, and it was like 2 heavyweight champions going 12 rounds. And
Oregon got a lot better since then.
And they were better. So, I didn't anticipate that Oregon would lose. And, I also, too, if you go back and watch, Oregon's defensive staff left Jeremiah Smith in one-on-one situations a lot in that game. And, I think that was just a miscalculation of how to cover them. And I think Texas did a pretty good job of outlining how you should probably try to defend them, right? But if you go back to, I was very surprised by the outcome of that game. But then when I started to think about it, it's like, okay, well, Oregon's got a lot of really good players. And then it just came back to the talent thing, which we always come back to, which is like Ohio State has no weaknesses outside of their offensive line, and their offensive line didn't allow James Pierce a pressure in the Tennessee game. And Oregon didn't do anything on defense, and Texas got a few sacks, but they held their own. It's like, and then Notre Dame's, and the other thing too is Notre Dame is missing their best pass rusher. Their offensive line, are they going to kick Jag out to the side and play tackle? Are they redoing their offensive line right now? It's just
it's a good time.
It's not peak Notre Dame either. That's the thing that sucks the most about this. It's
Notre Dame hasn't been peak Notre Dame since.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Hey, at left tackle, they're starting the guy that they wanted to start all along. He just happened to miss the entire season. Now he's back.
Yeah, is he playing tackle?
I think they're probably going to start him at tackle.
That's electric, dude.
Yeah. Just have at it, man.
And Jeremiah Love is fine, but still kind of hurt. And that run that he had, that was one of the best 1-yard runs I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
By the way, we got Ari on the show to say he saw the best 3-yard receiving performance in his career, and he saw the best 2-yard touchdown run.
Do you guys remember the Braxton Miller touchdown run against Penn State that was 2 yards 8 years ago, where he juked somebody and then went backward and jumped over? Yeah. Jeremiah Love beat that run that was that. I was like, I'm never going to see a more electric 1-yard run ever again. And then Jeremiah Love did that, and it was just holy.
Texas tried to do that on 2nd and goal from the 1.
Yeah. Also, too, it's very interesting. That toss play that Texas ran
was stupid.
It's got to be the worst play call I think I've ever seen in person.
It was so bad.
So and they bailed out they bailed Ohio State out too. So like, yeah, I don't know. Like maybe I'm just like over analyzing it, then trying to simplify it, and then over analyzing the simplified version. Like, but like I just
Ari
player
Wasserman
for
in a
player,
nutshell, ladies and gentlemen.
player for player. Like you guys know Notre
You're
Dame
the
like
Ryan
the
Day
back
of
of your
podcast.
hand.
You know that?
I am, except I don't
Yeah.
lose. Well,
You
sometimes I do.
You just ran the ball on 3rd and 5 at midfield.
But like Notre Dame athletically is much improved, right? And the Georgia
Yes.
and Alabamas of the world have
Yes.
come down, in which you saw. I thought Notre Dame beat the shit out of Georgia in the game. Like I thought physically, the way they arrived at the football. Do you guys believe, player for player, if you went down the list, that Notre Dame is just right there with them? Ohio State?
Ohio State?
No.
Yeah.
No. I just like I think Ohio
I don't
State
think they were
has
there
too
with
many-
Penn State. I mean, it was closer,
Yeah.
and they were able to get
Yeah,
over
I think
that hump,
that's
but
like the thing about the Penn State game was like there were large stretches of the game where I thought Penn State was better.
Yeah.
they had Tyler
The
Warren.
entire first half. Hey,
didn't have
listen,
anybody.
hey, 5-1 on
Abdul
Notre
Carter.
Dame
I
twice in the
mean,
game.
that was one of the great defensive individual performances I've ever seen in person.
Yeah.
He completely wrecked Notre Dame's offense, and Notre Dame. The fact they were able to score 27, I thought was remarkable. But yeah, there were stretches where clearly Penn State had a couple dudes that Notre Dame didn't. Ohio State has a couple more than Penn State has. So it's like, if you can get Jeremiah Smith for 1 catch for 3 yards, like that would be a huge win.
But then Emeka Egbuka could have 11 receptions for 100.
Yeah, which he's had. Like that's been the guy that's been most impressive against Notre Dame the last couple of years. Trayvon Henderson had the huge run last year. I would think that Notre Dame would probably try to play it where they try to put the extra man in the box and take their chances at the back end, which I know is kind of high.
they even given up a
risk,
pass to a
but
wide
I'm not
receiver
sure how
in 2
Notre Dame
weeks.
can play it.
Yeah.
The secondary is really freaking good.
I mean, like
Nicholas Singleton just announced he's returning for his senior year.
The good news for Notre Dame probably is that like Abdul Carter is not on Ohio State.
Yeah.
And like DDS is not on Ohio State. Like Penn State's got really good defensive linemen. And like Abdul Carter, is he going to be the first pick in the draft? Maybe. I mean, that's who you're talking about here. But at the same time too, it's like JTT and Jack Sawyer are also playing the best that they've ever played right now. Like Jack Sawyer, made that play at the end of the game, that strip sack that returned at the end of the game. It's like, this kid was supposed to be a Bosa, in my opinion. Like when he was a 5-star DN from Pickerington who committed his freshman or sophomore year of high school. Like he was supposed to come in and be the next great pass rusher. And like, it hasn't manifested that way, but it all of a sudden, like, it's like the light turned on and like, he's playing at a level that he's never played before.
Thanks a lot, Michigan.
I was saying, the Michigan game, that play was more impressive than the Texas one. Everyone remembers it for the flag stuff, but like that defense didn't lose them the game.
So that, I mean, so you're not only are you having all these players that should be in the league right now on your team, they're also like playing their most like possessed and best football they've ever played there. And then like it's like no one talks about Ohio State's linebackers; they're really good. Denzel Burke and Caleb Downs, like they have so many guys that are going to be in the NFL for 10 years that are just on the team, and like all we ever talk about is Jeremiah Smith, and it's like. That's not Notre Dame's biggest issue in this game is not stopping Ohio State's offense. It's scoring. Like that's it. Like how much are you going to score? Because asking your defense to hold Ohio State to 24, which I think is a reasonable ask, is doable. But then asking your offense to score 25 in the same game is just a lot for them both to do it. Like it's like one might do it and the other won't, but like both have to play their best possible game, I think.
But before we continue, just wanted to thank everyone for subscribing and downloading The Independent. Please continue to do so on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Please tune in to our YouTube channel as well. And thank you to our sponsors from Obvious Shirts. You've seen the shirts all around campus, around Notre Dame games, Notre Dame playoff games. Go to obviousshirts.com. Find plenty of podcast merchandise. Thank you to our partners there for their support.
Thank you to Roback.com. You can use promo code Irish for all your hoodies, which Matt and I are wearing right now. Joggers, shorts, tees, polos, quarter zips. Go to rowback.com, officially licensed Notre Dame apparel. Use promo code Irish for 20% off your first order. And also thank you to future fans. If you want to experience the playoffs with your kids and make sure your kids are ready to experience the magic of football, go to futurefans.com. Check out their activity box for football. Help your kids learn the sport and be passionate about it just like you. You can go to futurefans.com and get 15% off your first order with promo code Irish. That's futurefans.com. Get the football activity box designed for kids ages 4 to 8 and 15% off your first order with promo code Irish.
Ari, we haven't gone too deep into the quarterback matchup yet. A lot of like parallels here. I mean, they were Manning passing academy roommates. Notre Dame, by all accounts, had their choice between the two last year. They chose Riley Leonard over Will Howard. I think it's one of the, I mean, you made the joke about us playing quarterback for Ohio State, but I do think this actually worked out for both sides. I don't think Will Howard would be nearly as effective on Notre Dame's roster right now. And I don't think Riley Leonard, with the arm limitations he has, would be nearly as effective with all those Ohio State receivers as he has been as a run-first quarterback at Notre Dame. I just think it's kind of a strange matchup, right? I mean, this is the third straight year these teams are meeting, 6 different starting quarterbacks. First time all 3 of us are working for different outlets as well as we cover this game, transfer portal of sports media. But it's what's the feeling on what? Because I'm with you. I good for Kyle McCord. He got his. He had a great year at Syracuse. I don't think he's better at Ohio State than Will Howard was. They needed a more mobile, bigger guy, and I think Will Howard has provided that for them. But he does have his limitations.
I got in trouble today because I said on the show that I thought Riley Leonard is on our show that Riley Leonard is the advantage at quarterback. And like people did not like that. People were upset with me. Is that crazy?
I don't think either's going to win you a game. I think Howard's more capable of losing you a game.
I think that Riley Leonard has been more. Have you guys heard the truck trailer thing that like recruiting and draft analysts do, where if you're a truck of a quarterback, you are the driving engine of your offense, and if you're a trailer, you're a distributor who gets pulled down the field by your complement. Like I think that Riley Leonard is more of a truck than Will Howard.
I agree,
but I think Will Howard has the nice existence of distributing the ball to people who can take a screen pass 75 yards before halftime. So, like, I've been very impressed with Riley Leonard this year. And I think that we knew coming into it that he was going to be one of the best rushing threats in the entire sport. But I think Will Howard has played really, really well. And I think it's been easier for him to play really well because he's playing with really good players everywhere. Like, the thing that would keep me up at night with Notre Dame more than anything is I don't know if they have the receiver talent to score enough, right? Like if you put Jeremiah Smith or hell, even Emeka Egbuka,
Cornell Tate
on the other team, like I think that like the entire way we view Notre Dame would be different. And like I know they've had some dudes who have, shown up in big moments the last few weeks, for sure. But like there's just no consistent person who's getting open at all. And like that to me, and like Riley Leonard leading his team to the national title game with that deficiency is really impressive to me. And I don't think that it's like weird to say I think Riley Leonard is the advantage here. Like people got mad, but like I don't know. Will Howard's good. I'm not saying if you pick one over the other, you're not like saying the other one sucks. But I've been like blown away by Riley Leonard this year. Am I alone at that?
No, you had a measured take. I mean, you're not as much trouble as our friend Malik Zaire is for saying Will Howard's the worst Ohio State quarterback of his lifetime or of the last however many years. And we can debate about that all we want. But I said this off air. It is crazy for as loaded as Ohio State is every year. There's at least the odds say their most recent 3 national title quarterbacks will be Craig Krenzel, 3 weeks of Cardale Jones, and Will Howard. Like no Justin Fields, no C.J. Stroud, no Joe Burrow, no JT Barrett.
I thought that tweet was hilarious. Like, is he trying? Like,
he's from Ohio. I mean, he was broadcasting. He was doing CBS sports games for a while. I'm not sure.
What he wrote is true. Like,
he was our best friend when we covered him. Like, as far as like go-to quote, like he was awesome.
Yeah, like it's like, yeah, no, he's not as good as those guys. What does that have to do with anything? What are you talking about? I don't understand
Yeah.
I don't even understand what the point is. Like,
I think
yeah, if they had
Leonard
Joe
has,
Burrow on their on this team, then the spread would be 51. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
They don't have Joe Burrow. Like, they don't have the greatest
They bench him.
individual performance
yeah.
of a quarterback in the history of our sport. No, and they don't have Justin Fields, and they don't. But like, that is the funniest thing about Ohio State's existence too. It's like, if you go back and you like look at some of the best teams in program history, like 05 and 15 and 19, like all their best
Todd
teams,
Beckman.
they don't win. It's the flawed ones that
Yeah.
are like, they'll drive you crazy, are the ones that win. It's like, I don't know how Ohio State fans are going to take it if they win the national title in a year they lost to Michigan. It's never happened before, but it's like, the 14 team was a year early. And this year they lost to Michigan and shouldn't have even been in the playoff to begin with, if it weren't for the expansion. And it's like, now they're going to probably potentially win it. I don't know, but like all their best, greatest teams didn't. So like, you never know like how it's going to play out. But like, to me, the quarterback thing is so interesting. And like, I don't know what analysis that was. That's like, yeah, he's not as good as the other 3 top 10 picks that they had at the position. But like, I don't think that anybody was under the impression that he was supposed to be. I think they were supposed to bring in somebody who could run in situations where you need to run. And I actually am surprised by how little they've used him in the design run game, because I think Will Howard, if you watch him at Kansas State, was a much more prevalent runner there than he is at Ohio State. But at the same time too, don't turn the ball over, don't mess up, and get it to Jeremiah Smith is his job. And I think a lot of people could do that job, but he's done it pretty effectively this year. So I like Riley Leonard, but I don't know if like I look at Ohio State and go, Will Howard's the reason they're going to lose. Like that's nonsense.
I just think we have a great handle on how to look at quarterbacks who aren't Joe Burrow or aren't like the prototype. I mean, Riley Leonard, he's a great runner, but I still don't think we have a handle on just how great of a rushing threat he is. He has one less missed tackle force than Quinshon Judkins this year. Like, I think we think Quinshon Judkins is a really good running back, right? Like, Riley Leonard has 16 rushing touchdowns. Like, he's a pain in the ass in the red zone. Like, it just schematically, it's hard to deal with. But
I just think it's because NFL draft coverage has become so prevalent in like what we do
too. Like, it's just like the idea that Riley Leonard can't beat you with his arm. Maybe not.
You know what?
But Notre Dame's playing for the national championship.
The last time they won a national title, I believe they had a quarterback who was very similar. Like, I didn't see it live week to week, but Tony Rice.
Aaron Taylor's come on the show, has referred to Riley Leonard as the white Tony Rice. And I think it's fair. That's kind of what he is.
So here's my hot take about Ohio State's quarterbacks. Their best one that they've ever had, in my opinion, was Braxton Miller. That guy would never play a snap in the NFL at quarterback. And
that's Urban in a nutshell. Like, he was ahead of the curve for a while in college, but he didn't really develop those guys for the NFL.
But like, we are so bogged down by who's going to be a top 5 pick that we lose sight of who's a really good college football player.
Yeah, like Drew Allen. The opposite of that, right?
Yeah, you don't have to be Joe Burrow to win a national title, right? Like, Mac Jones was the ultimate trailer, right? Like, I mean, he completed like 91% of his passes that year, or some crazy thing. Devontae Smith was on his team.
First round pick.
So I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, who are the national championship winning quarterbacks of the last 6 years? Like, Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence stand alone in that, and players that went on to be successful in the league. But like, I don't think that that's a necessity. You have to be like a Pro Bowler to do that?
It was a trend. It was a 5 to 6 year trend. And
that's Bennett won back to back, to your point. I mean,
that doesn't mean it's going to go on forever. You had the Tua, Jalen Hurts combo. Like, they're great players. But there's a lot more pretty good quarterbacks who just, for lack of a better term, kind of had like this leadership thing happening. That's what you need.
McCarthy, although he's a top 10 pick.
Both teams in the game this year have non-starter NFL quarterbacks.
Right.
So, like, if you're going to nag Riley Leonard for that, then you have to. It's this. No matter who wins the national title this year, their quarterback is not going to be a first-round NFL draft pick. So, like, just whatever you want to say about that. Man, I can't. I wanted to tell you guys something. I don't know if we're gonna. I went. My wife got me a cute little Hanukkah gift in December, and we went, and it was I love that on the Irish Catholic podcast. We got a little Jewish flavor in there, but we went to Shane Gillis on Saturday night.
Ooh.
And I know you guys know he
oh my goodness.
He had
the most insightful thing said about college football anywhere this year.
Yeah.
So, really, the SEC cheats? That's insightful.
It was in the American Airlines Center in Dallas the day after Texas lost. And he's a big Notre Dame guy, and I thought he was going to do at least 10 minutes just talking shit about Notre Dame winning and Texas losing and stuff. But he had a 15-minute bit about like going to a Notre Dame football game when he was a kid with all of his friends in a caravan. And I don't know if that's ever going to be anything than just something that he says in a show that you're not allowed to record. But hopefully one day it will come to light, and it'll be like in a special that's on Netflix or something. And then like there's like it's not about Notre Dame football at all. It's about something that occurred like on the way to South Bend and in South Bend. But I was like laughing, like this guy, Shane Gillis, is like the best Notre Dame fan ever, right? Because it's like he didn't go there, and like he's where he's from. Everybody roots for Notre Dame, and it's like I think Shane Gillis is the reason why so many people just dislike Notre Dame to begin with, right? And like I was like thinking about this, and it's like, these are the two most hated teams in college football, right? And like this is the first time ever that Notre Dame might be second on the list, and I think that's because of Marcus Freeman, which is pretty cool. It's like people are rooting for Notre Dame this weekend, right? On Monday.
Yeah.
I think the public is rooting for Notre Dame to win a national title. Think about that.
I always wondered, you could speak to this better than I could, Ari. Like Notre Dame has a ton of Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, whatever order you want to put it, probably the three biggest brands as far as fan bases around the country. I feel Notre Dame, obviously, because of the size of the school, they have so many fans who just grew up with it and didn't go there. Michigan, I think, is very similar. I have a lot of friends who are Michigan fans who did not go there or from the state. I feel like no one outside the state of Ohio gives a damn about Ohio State, but the in-state pool is so powerful, and they all get behind it internally in a way that Michigan doesn't.
I think there's probably a lot of Ohio State fans that have never stepped foot in Ohio just because I don't know, when you're kids just like gravitate to what's cool at the moment. Like I have a bunch of friends who are Miami fans who have never been to Florida because like Miami was the shit when we were in middle school, you know?
Right. I've never met anyone who's like, not from Ohio who has an attachment to Ohio State.
I think Notre Dame is the one that wins the most in that. Like, cause like, I think Notre Dame has fans from a cultural perspective that have nothing to do with geography at all, right? Like if you're an Irish Catholic,
do with football sometimes.
Look how small the school is. Like they clearly punch above their weight in that regard.
Yeah. So like I think that like if you're an Irish Catholic person, you identify with Notre Dame just from that standpoint. And I think that is the reason why so many people don't like them, because it's not just about football; it's about all those other things too. But I think that like Marcus Freeman is an Ohio State guy. Funny enough, but like makes them likable in a way that like Brian Kelly, like if there was a flame of hatred, like Brian Kelly stood over the flame and just threw gas on it. Like it's so easy to hate Brian Kelly. Like how do you hate Marcus Freeman? Like nobody hates that guy.
It was Kelly Urban right now.
Like Kelly and Urban didn't do anything to help the cause. But like, I actually think Ryan Day is a very likable person too. Like,
he seems like one of the more. I don't know.
Nice guy, yeah.
So like, way too normal for that job, and I think that's actually a flaw in a weird way.
That's the reason why people think that he shouldn't be the coach anymore, because you could actually go to Chili's with him and talk about something that isn't football. Like you could go to Chili's with Ryan Day and have a nice dinner. Like, could you imagine going to Chili's with Brian Kelly?
No.
Do you have that? Do you do that? The go to Chili's with test? Like, who would you want to go eat dinner with? Just like a casual dinner with.
My number one on that list, and he's confirmed it 1,000 times this last month, is Brett Bielema. But yeah,
like you would want to go hang out with that guy. But he's also a robot in his own regard. But I feel like I think if Ryan Day's kids went to my school, like he would be like somebody that lived in my neighborhood that like you would just hang out with because he's a normal guy. Like, and you don't find that very often in college football. And like, I don't even know if Marcus Freeman is that at this point. I'm going to be interviewed by the Chicago Bears, Marcus Freeman anyway. I don't know.
Yeah. Dallas has an opening.
I mean, look, there. Yeah, I mean, I've said this before, but like, you know, I live in South Bend. We have kids that are the same age. When I see Marcus Freeman at a flag football game, like this isn't the Chili's test, but it's like will I go over and like kibitz with you for 5 minutes and it not be weird? Like, I want to talk to you. You want to talk to me. Marcus Freeman, check.
Right.
I ran into Brian Kelly at a flag football game. It would be like a head nod, and I would keep on going.
Right. And that's the thing. Yeah. Like with my experience when covering Urban Meyer, it's like, yeah, like you're an important figure to me. I need to cover you. I think, you're good at your job, but like, I have no interest in being your friend. You know what I mean? Like, or like, I would never want to like hang out with you. Whereas like Ryan Day, like when you're with him, it's like, yeah, you're a good dude. You know what I mean? So, and I think that also too, it's like, I don't know if Kirby Smart would pass the Chili's test. I don't know if, who
Very
else
few
would Dabo Sweeney pass the Chili's test? Probably not. I wonder
down there.
You think so?
Yeah, I think Dabo would.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I think that's our colleague Seth Emerson would argue that Kirby would pass the Chili's test for him at least, but like,
yeah,
just again, in a general sense, I'm not sure that would.
But I just don't know if passing the Chili's test is actually a good thing. Like, I think if you pass the Chili's test, you're probably not as good of a college football coach. But maybe Marcus Freeman and Ryan Day are about to prove us around. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Do you have to be a robot? Here's the one. Does Nick Saban pass the Chili's test?
No, not chance in hell. But just said Kirby,
he's the most effective coach in the history of the game.
Kirby and Dabo would. They're the only two guys who won a title. We just said Freeman would. He's beaten both of them and might be the third guy to win a title.
Harbaugh?
Maybe he would need to be one.
Dude, I don't think people in his family want to go to Chili's with him. I don't know. I mean, or like the thing with Jim Harbaugh is...
Oh, Harbaugh, yeah.
Jim Harbaugh.
See, I think he'd pass it with like fans. He wouldn't pass with media.
I think he may even be a server at Chili's just for, like, to be.
No, the thing with Jim Harbaugh is that like it actually may be the most entertaining dinner you've ever been to.
Yeah.
Because like all the quotes of like, I don't eat chicken, the nervous bird, like all the things that he says are funny.
When he got to Michigan, he said, I remember reading an interview with him where he's like, I just had Cracker Barrel. I couldn't have that in the NFL. Like, I just miss this small town. Like, he was so like,
yeah,
he loves being ingrained in a community like that. Now, again,
Jim Harbaugh also like loves football more than anybody else in the world. Like, it's like he's programmed to that. Like, I think Jim Harbaugh probably would be a pretty cool hang. I don't know. It would be weird.
I don't think it'd be a cool hang, but I think like
it would be memorable.
You wouldn't be able to be like, so how are your kids? Like, I don't think you could have like a normal conversation with him. I think you would have to talk about some like weird grab ass topic, and then it would be hilarious. But like, I think if Jim Harbaugh's the dude that you would invite to your bachelor party, and it'd be like, wow, I'm happy this guy's here. And then like by day 2, it's like, what the hell are we doing with this guy? Like, I think like that would be it. But yeah, I'm sorry I took your podcast completely.
Oh no, I'll bring like, so last week Penn State plays Notre Dame, and I don't know if this counts as a Chili test, but so my wife's like, I went to Penn State, and I was like, I gotta be honest.
Franklin not passing the Chili's test, by the way.
No, he's not. I was like, I gotta be honest with you, like, I'm rooting for Notre Dame in this one. I'm like, okay, why? She goes, Marcus Freeman just seems like such a nice guy, and I'm like, oh, nice, yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's a really nice. Thanks. My phone background is a picture of you in the Penn State tunnel that I arranged for us with our kids. Thanks. You're welcome for all the hard work. Nice guy, Marcus Freeman, who you've never met.
Also, Marcus Freeman's hot, so that helps.
Well, yeah, I think that's maybe what she meant by nice.
Yeah. Like,
and I'm like, what's he got?
But
that
it does,
I don't,
like,
right?
Like,
we got.
Because we could go another 20 minutes on appearances of coaches. It's like, if you are an unattractive man, does that hurt you in your quest to be good at football coaching?
Probably. Because like Cliff Kingsbury keeps getting jobs, and he had a losing record with Patrick Mahomes, but he's really good looking.
Like, are you a better recruiter if you're handsome and well put together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a player.
But that doesn't matter anymore in the NIL world.
Yeah, it might not. It's like I don't want to. There are a few coaches out there that are not attractive, and I'm not going to say their names because it's mean. But I'm on high alert of like, who is the ugliest coach that has won a championship?
Oh, I got a few that are in my mind right now.
There's not a lot of active participants in this. So
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, It's like Nick Saban is like the most attractive 75-year-old man you'll ever see in your life.
I mean, he's Alabama Jones. He's great.
Yeah. Kirby Smart's not ugly. I don't think anybody who is like horrifically ugly has won a championship. At least in my lifetime.
Probably right on that one. Well, whoever wins on Monday night, I feel like they both passed that test.
Yeah, they're both moderately attractive. They're both passed the Chili's test, but like that man can fill out a quarter zip like nobody else can.
Yeah, it's impressive. Different cut of college football coach. All right, Ari, I think you got to go.
Reviews, bud, because of me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just ruined the podcast, but I appreciate it, guys, and I'm looking forward to the game, and I make a lot of predictions, and I'm wrong all the time. So my hope is that I'm wrong and we get a great game.
For people, could just to end it on a high note, could you read your prediction into existence here?
Yeah, Ohio State 38, Notre Dame 17.
Okay,
was what I put out there. But then
we didn't want to have that at the beginning of the show, obviously, for listenership issues.
But maybe it would be 31-17 or 20 or 30-17 would probably be better. I think it's the 38 that's a little bit much. Because Notre Dame hasn't given up that many points in like 2 years, right? So maybe they won't score that much. But like the reason why the crucial number here is 17 because it's like right on the team total, and like I think that is the biggest thing of the game is like, do you think Notre Dame's going to cross that threshold? And if they do, then we might be in for a game that we're not anticipating. But like, listen, maybe they have like that it factor where it's like ELE, everybody love everybody. We're feeling ourselves. We're no matter what happens or who's injured, we're going to have each other's back. We're playing for the men. All the like cliche brotherhood crap, like all that stuff is actually like cooking in the locker room. And they play a inspired football game that leads. Like that's why, we play the games, right? So.
Can I ask one question before I know you got to go?
Sure.
Again, Ohio State centered. Do you think Urban Meyer would actually be happy deep down if Ryan Day finished the job, or do you think he secretly loves being missed like this?
Like, do I think that Urban Meyer is like reveling in like the misery against Michigan? If I had to guess, like, I'll just put myself into it. Like, I would want to be missed. Like, I hope every ex that I have is like miserable because like their boyfriend sucks. Like, don't you want like the people that you come across?
Or
like,
takes every question and turns it into an attractiveness date night.
No, I'm just saying, like, don't you like? Yeah, everybody wants to be wanted. Like, so I mean, I guess like to it, like Urban Meyer has a national championship and he has his record against Michigan. I don't know that anything that Ryan Day does or doesn't do is ever going to change that. But like, I do think that there probably is a part of him that's enjoying this. Yeah.
Enjoying the wins or the losses?
Enjoying people wanting him.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
But I also feel like I would be like that too. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes him a bad guy or not. But like, I would. I mean, I want the Athletic to be like, oh, I wish Ari was still here.
Oh, when you're not on with us, we're like, God, Ari and Andy, we just hope that podcast fails now.
I mean, like, wouldn't if you like left the Athletic, wouldn't you want them to feel? Because that means you did a good job. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll say the week I left,
reasonable. Like that's different than saying I hope the Athletic would suffer and be miserable.
Oh well, that's not. No, I didn't say that. I don't think that he thinks.
I think that's probably how Urban would
praise to God that Ohio State sucks. But I think that he is reveling, or he would, at least a part of him would revel in the fact that like Ohio State fans are like, God, I wish we had the good old days like Urban. But no, I don't like actively root for the Athletic. I want the Athletic to be prosperous and successful, but I want like Jill to be like, I wish he was on our staff still. Of course.
The week I left was when the Northwestern scandal broke, and I got a few messages of like, damn, we could have used you this week. And I'm like, yep.
And did you like it?
Yeah, I mean, thanks. All right. Late and $1 short, but thanks.
All right. On that note, before I'm out of a job, this has been the latest episode of The Independent. Ari, thanks for coming on the show. I will see you in Atlanta. I expect a hug at Media Day,
of course,
and in the press box and post game. Matt, hopefully we will be back with a future show or another show later this week previewing the game. Maybe it won't be as off the rails as Ari, but like that's for the best. So until then, he's Matt. I'm Pete. Ari, thanks for being with us on the latest episode of The Independent.